Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop texting her, calling her, or trying so hard to get her attention, suddenly she starts paying more attention to you? It's not magic, it's psychology. You see, when a woman feels your absence, she doesn't automatically translate it into rejection. No, something far more intriguing happens. She starts wondering. She starts asking questions in her own mind. Why did he go quiet? Did I say something wrong? Is he losing interest? And just like that, you've shifted her focus from you chasing her to her thinking about you. Now let's be clear, ignoring a woman you like isn't about playing childish games. It's not about ghosting or being manipulative. It's about stepping back and allowing your energy to create space, and in that space, something powerful grows: curiosity. When you're constantly available, constantly responding, constantly proving your affection, you remove the very mystery that keeps attraction alive. And let's face it, human nature doesn't value what's always within arm's reach. We value what we have to think about, what we have to wonder about, what keeps us guessing. That's what ignites emotional investment. Think about how marketing works. Ever notice how luxury brands barely advertise? They don't beg you to notice them. They create an aura. They allow you to seek them out. The same principle applies here. When you hold back your attention, respectfully and calmly, you become more than just another guy trying to win her over. You become a puzzle, a mystery, a question that lingers in her mind even after the conversation ends. What makes this so powerful is that it invites her to reflect on your worth without you having to say a word. Instead of you convincing her why she should want you, your silence causes her to convince herself. She replays moments, interprets your body language, reads between the lines of your texts, or lack thereof. And all this happens internally, which is where the strongest emotions are built. When you remove your presence, you let her imagination go to work, and trust me, the imagination can create far stronger emotions than anything you could fabricate through words. She starts to miss you, even if she doesn't admit it. She starts to feel you even when you're not around, because it's in your absence that she finally has the space to notice the energy you once brought into her life. Remember, attention is currency, and the most attractive men spend it wisely. When you give it freely, it loses value. But when you give it with intention, when you're deliberate, selective, even silent when needed, it becomes priceless. So never fear the silence. Embrace it. Let it do the talking. Because sometimes your silence speaks the loudest, and when it does, she won't be able to stop listening. When it comes to attraction, one of the most underestimated, yet deeply compelling qualities a man can possess is selectiveness. You see, it's easy to assume that the more attention you give a woman, the more she'll like you. But what often happens instead is the opposite. When your attention is freely given to everyone, it loses its power. There's no sense of uniqueness, no emotional spark. Nothing that tells her, I chose you because you stood out. And trust me, women feel that difference. A man who is selective with his time, his energy, and his presence doesn't come across as arrogant. He comes across as valuable. Because let's be honest, anything that is rare, anything not easily available, automatically becomes more desirable. Think about it. Would you crave a meal that's always in your fridge, ready to eat, or the one you can only get once a month, made by a chef with a long waiting list? That anticipation, that scarcity, adds flavor. In the same way, your emotional availability shouldn't be on tap. It should be earned. When you're selective, you communicate silently, but powerfully, that your standards matter. That you don't give your attention simply because someone is attractive or flirty or convenient. You give it because you see something deeper, something meaningful. And when a woman realizes that you've chosen her not out of desperation, not because you're lonely or trying to impress, but because she genuinely aligns with your values, that's when you stand out from every other man she's known. But here's where it gets even more powerful. Being selective doesn't mean being cold. It means being grounded. It means you know your worth so well, you don't feel the need to overextend yourself just to gain someone's affection. You become the kind of man who doesn't need to prove anything because your confidence speaks before you do. Women sense that, and it's magnetic. It creates a dynamic where they want to earn your attention rather than just expect it. And this doesn't just influence how women see you. It transforms how you see yourself. You begin to move with more intention. You stop chasing temporary validation and start attracting genuine connection. You raise your energy, and in turn, you begin to draw in people who are truly aligned with the man you're becoming. So yes, being selective might mean that some women will walk away, but the ones who stay will respect you more, because you're not just another man throwing around compliments and chasing after beauty. You're a man who knows what he brings to the table and refuses to settle for less than what aligns with his purpose. And that right there is when she starts to see you differently. not just as someone who's interested, but as someone who's irreplaceable. There's something incredibly captivating about a man who isn't easily shaken, who doesn't rush to react, and who holds his emotions close to his chest. Not in a cold, dismissive way, but in a way that shows restraint, discipline, and self-control. That's the essence of emotional detachment, and whether we want to admit it or not, it creates mystery. It leaves room for curiosity. And that curiosity is exactly what fuels deeper attraction. You see, when a man is too available emotionally, constantly expressing his every feeling, chasing after reassurance, or trying too hard to be understood, it becomes predictable. It removes the tension. It removes the question mark. And when there's no question, there's nothing to explore. Women don't fall for men who hand over their emotional landscape on a silver platter. They fall for the ones who give just enough to spark intrigue, but leave something to discover. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you're not invested. It means you're not emotionally dependent. It's the difference between being present in a connection and being consumed by it. When you maintain your composure, even when emotions run high, you communicate a powerful message. I'm in control of myself. That calm, grounded energy doesn't just make you more attractive. It makes you unforgettable. Because most people, especially in the early stages of connection, are so focused on impressing or reacting that they lose their center. But when you remain centered, it makes her wonder what's beneath the surface. Who is this man who doesn't need validation? What's he thinking? What makes him tick? And that's where mystery is born. It's not in the words you say. It's in the pauses, the unread texts, the glances that leave more unsaid than spoken. It's in your ability to walk away from a conversation without needing to wrap it up with emotional closure. That space you create, emotionally and mentally, becomes the playground for her imagination. And when her imagination is engaged, you're not just in her presence, you're in her mind. This doesn't mean being distant or playing hard to get for the sake of it. It means mastering your emotional energy so it serves you, not enslaves you. It's about recognizing that your presence carries more weight when it's delivered with confidence and clarity, not neediness and overexposure. When a woman senses that you're not relying on her reactions to define your mood or your worth, she starts to feel something she can't quite explain. That pull, that energy, that mystery. And that's the moment everything shifts. Because once you've sparked curiosity, once you've shown her that there's more to you than what's on the surface, she won't just want your attention, she'll crave your presence. Not because you gave it away freely, but because you made it feel rare, powerful, and undeniably earned. There's a moment in every connection where the balance either tilts toward power or toward pursuit. And far too often, men unknowingly hand over all their power in the name of showing interest. They text first every time. They chase, they overextend, they apologize even when nothing is their fault. They wait on replies, rearrange their lives just to get a few minutes of her time. And while it may feel like love or devotion, what's actually happening is a quiet transfer of power, one that rarely ends in respect. But the moment you stop chasing, the moment you step back and stand firm in your self-worth, the dynamic begins to shift. Because now, you're not seeking validation, you're standing in your value. You're no longer trying to be chosen, you're choosing. And when that shift happens, she feels it. It doesn't need to be announced or explained. It's felt. Women are incredibly intuitive in picking up on these energetic shifts. When you stop leaning in, when you remove that sense of urgency and pressure, something in her recalibrates. She notices that the emotional grip she once had on you is no longer there, and that does something powerful to her interest. This isn't about playing cold or detached. It's about knowing who you are and refusing to beg for a place in someone's life. Because, truthfully, when a woman feels that a man needs her approval to function, to feel confident, to feel masculine, it dulls the very attraction he's trying to build. But when you carry yourself like a man who knows that his presence is a privilege, everything about how she engages with you begins to change. She becomes more intentional, more curious. She stops taking your time for granted and starts wondering how she can keep your attention, not just get it. That's the power shift most men miss. Because it doesn't come through louder words or bigger gestures. It comes through emotional balance, through the silent confidence of someone who doesn't chase love, but attracts it. When you're the one in control of your emotions, your focus, your energy, you dictate the tone of every interaction. You move from the man who reacts to the man who leads. And in that leadership, in that quiet but steady self-command, you become magnetic, you become unforgettable. Because now, instead of you orbiting around her world, she starts to wonder how to enter yours. That's when the game changes, not through manipulation, not through force, but through presence. The kind of presence that says, I don't need you to want me. I need you to respect me, and if you do, everything else will follow. There's something incredibly powerful about silence, especially when it comes from a man who once gave his attention freely. You see, we often think silence means nothing is happening, that if we're not talking, not texting, not chasing, then we're being forgotten. But silence, when used with intention, does something words can't. It doesn't just echo into nothingness, it triggers her internal dialogue. And that, more than anything you could say, has the power to shift how she sees you. When a woman is used to hearing from you every day, your good morning texts, your check-ins, your consistent presence, and suddenly that rhythm stops, her mind doesn't just go quiet. No, it gets louder. It begins to ask questions. Why hasn't he called? Did something happen? Is he losing interest? And in that space of not knowing, her emotions begin to swirl. She starts reflecting on how she behaved. She replays your last conversation. She wonders if she was too cold, too distant, or maybe even too entitled. That silence becomes a mirror, forcing her to look at herself and the role she's playing in the dynamic. And here's the thing, people value what they fear losing. So when you go quiet, when you stop over-explaining, stop justifying, stop showing up uninvited in her world, she starts to realize what your presence actually meant. Sometimes it's not until you remove your energy that someone feels its weight. And when that absence is felt, it creates more impact than any declaration of love ever could. But this only works when your silence isn't laced with bitterness or manipulation. It's not about punishing her or making her chase you. It's about reclaiming your emotional power and letting her come to her own conclusions. Because when people come to their own realizations, those lessons stick. If you say it, she can dismiss it. If she feels it, she won't forget it. Silence becomes your way of saying, I'm not here to prove myself to you. I've shown up. I've given. Now it's your turn, and whether she responds or not, you've already won. Because you've stepped into a space of self-respect. You've shifted the dynamic from pursuit to presence. And the truth is, silence doesn't mean disconnection. It means you're choosing to let clarity speak louder than conversation. It means you've recognized that sometimes the most attractive thing you can do isn't to explain yourself, but to withdraw with gracie. That space you create forces her to think, to feel, to miss what once felt guaranteed. Because when silence enters the room, it demands attention. And in that stillness, she'll either realize your value or reveal that she never truly saw it. Either way, your silence will speak the truth. There's something profoundly magnetic about a man who knows his worth, not a man who brags, not one who postures or tries to prove how important he is, but a man who moves with quiet confidence, grounded in self-respect. That kind of energy doesn't chase, it doesn't beg, and it certainly doesn't compromise its peace to impress someone else. And let me tell you, nothing commands a woman's attention more than a man who respects himself enough to walk away from anything that doesn't match the value he brings to the table. You see, self-respect is not about ego, it's about standards. It's about knowing what you want and refusing to shrink yourself to fit into situations that make you feel small. When a man chooses to walk in self-respect, he naturally becomes more selective with his time, his energy, and his attention. He's not available to every woman just because she's beautiful or gives him a little attention. He's available to someone who sees him, someone who honors his presence just as much as he honors theirs. And that energy, it's rare. Most people are so consumed with being liked that they forget the power of liking themselves first. But when you show up whole, when you stop performing and start standing in your truth, you stop attracting from a place of lack and start attracting from a place of power. Women feel that. They feel when your actions are rooted in confidence rather than insecurity. They sense when your interest is sincere but not needy. And that balance is everything. A man with self-respect doesn't try to prove he's worthy of love. He already believes he is. And that belief changes the way he moves in relationships. He doesn't overgive just to be accepted. He doesn't tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. He sets boundaries, not walls. And he understands that distance isn't always rejection, it's protection. When you respect yourself, you don't fear being alone, because you know that being alone and at peace is far more valuable than being with someone who doesn't truly appreciate you. And that energy isn't just attractive, it's inspiring. It challenges the people around you to rise to the level of how you carry yourself. It communicates, without a single word, that your life is already full, and anyone who wants to be a part of it must bring more than confusion or convenience. So, if you ever find yourself wondering what will truly make her see your worth, start by seeing it yourself. Respect yourself in how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you respond when you're hurt, and how you choose what to tolerate. Because self-respect is the quiet force that commands attention without asking for it. And the moment you stop seeking validation and start living from that place of inner certainty, You become the kind of man she doesn't just want. You become the kind of man she never wants to lose. At the heart of it all, ignoring a woman you like isn't about cruelty or mind games. It's about reclaiming your power, your peace, and your purpose. It's about understanding that true attraction isn't built through constant attention or overexposure, but through mystery, self-worth, and emotional control. When you stop chasing, when you become selective, when you choose silence over validation, you invite her to see your value through your absence. That's when she starts to think. That's when she starts to feel. And that's when she starts to realize what she took for granted. Because a man who is grounded, intentional, and emotionally disciplined doesn't just attract a woman. He captivates her. He becomes the standard, not the exception. And in a world full of noise and neediness, your silence, your restraint, your self-respect, that's what speaks the loudest.